Good morning. I'm glad you could join me today on Working Together. Today we are going to be talking about the importance of syntax for language learning in elementary school. Our guest speaker today is Jeanette Tinworth. By the end of this podcast, teachers should be able to 1. Understand how being aware of syntax is important for reading and writing. 2. Learn how studying a sentence can help develop syntactical awareness. 3. Talk about strategies to support learning syntax and building skills. These 3 are especially important for ELL students as they build their L2 skills. I'd like to introduce our guest today, Jeanette Tinworth. Has worked in education since 2001 with a focus on elementary grades, especially grades 2 and 3. She has recently moved into an ELL position and is eager to share some of her knowledge with us. Welcome, Jeanette.
Thank you. I'm excited to be here.
So tell me, why is syntax important?
At its simplest, syntax takes words and puts them in order so they make sense. All students need to understand the importance of syntax to create sentences that carry meaning and are appropriate for the expected style. For example, a factual scientific sentence will look different than a sentence from a narrative story. Understanding how to build accurate sentences based on syntactic knowledge is helpful for ELLs because most L2 learners will examine a new language with a more critical eye, trying to learn all the reasons for word placement. The more they know, the better they'll do at building strong, meaningful sentences. In Power Play from Grammar to Language Study, Devereaux and Krovich say, teaching from a linguistic perspective acknowledges students themselves as legitimate experts with language in their own right. Studying syntax, even with students as young as grade 1 and 2, helps students become language experts. Students of an elementary level need to understand the basics of a sentence. A sentence is a group of words that expresses a complete thought, idea, or statement. It typically contains a subject, which is what the sentence is about, and a predicate, which includes a verb and provides information about the subject's action or state. Elementary students need to understand this basic sentence and how to put it together, and also understand what isn't a sentence. For example, the red balloons, or ran for 3 hours. Now, this page is actually directly from Canva. I thought they did such a good job of describing a sentence that I decided to keep this page.
So tell me, what is syntactic knowledge?
Syntactic knowledge is understanding the grammatical structure of a sentence. The most basic components, for example, are the subject, which is the main topic or focus, the predicate, which provides information about the subject, and then the verb, which is a key element of the predicate. And I gave an example here. The cat in the sentence of the cat chased the mouse is the subject. Chase the mouse in the sentence, the cat chased the mouse, is the predicate. And in the sentence, she is reading a book, the verb is reading. Now this example also came from Canva, but I decided to keep it because it shows the simplicity of a very simple sentence. This is something that can be learned easily in grade 1 and 2.
Okay, so I understand what syntactic knowledge is, but what is syntactic awareness?
Oh, that is a great question. Understanding the rules of sentence structure in such a way that a student can manipulate a sentence to suit their needs. So, for example, I've given 3 on this page. Learning that sentences are made up of independent and dependent clauses allows students to create strong sentences. So an independent clause is a clause that can be spoken as a sentence all by itself, and a dependent clause is a clause that needs to be attached to a sentence in order to be complete. So here's the example. The boy was tired and cranky because he hadn't gotten enough sleep that night. Okay, the second example, understanding that those words and clauses can be moved to different parts of the sentence, and you can create a sentence that maybe has a slightly different meaning or that is more impactful. For example, he hadn't gotten enough sleep that night, so the boy was tired and cranky. This is an example of a sentence where the emphasis is a little bit more on the sleep instead of being tired and cranky. And then finally, my last example is that syntactic awareness also allows students to change the tone and emphasis of a sentence. They can write sentences in a passive voice, which places the object of the sentence before the verb. And so I've given you an example of this. And again, this is an example of a more academic sentence that is often used more in writing and less in speaking. So here's the example. After not enough sleep that night, the boy was very tired and cranky. Students need to understand how to build sentences by learning the roles of each part of the sentence. So starting in grade 1, I'd start with the basics. Students need to learn how to write basic sentences with one independent clause. For example, my family likes to go geocaching. The next step is building. Students learn how to join two clauses together into compound sentences. My family likes to go geocaching, and we have ice cream together. Now, those are two independent thoughts that could be sentences on their own, and they've been joined with the and. Students can learn how to do that using conjunctions like and, but, and because. The second section, the third is growing. Students learn the difference between a dependent and independent clause and learn how to use them. So the example I chose is my family likes to go geocaching, but not when it's cold and rainy. Now there's an independent clause here, a clause that can be its own sentence. My family likes to go geocaching. And then it's joined with a dependent clause, a clause that can't be a sentence all on its own, not when it's cold and rainy. Finally, extending. Students learn different types of sentences are appropriate for different settings. Preparing sentences for different academic subjects helps to build grammar skills. So we could make this into a math question. Now, of course, I would have a bit more detail in there, but how many family members went geocaching yesterday? And learn how to build questions and learn how to maybe tell some factual sentences in there as well. I'll get more into that in just a few minutes.
So how can this information be taught?
Well, sentence building and focusing on a content sentence is one way that can really help elementary students. Most students, especially ELL students, need help building their academic reading and writing skills. Academic vocabulary is important for understanding and success in school assignments and is often required in work situations as one moves out of school. It's the formal language we use to communicate. So sentence building will help students build specific academic writing skills for understanding academic English and being able to write their own academic texts independently. Take a content-driven sentence, such as one in a class's current read aloud book, and it examines how that sentence is put together. It looks at details such as clauses, punctuation, and conjunctions. It provides even primary students a chance to build their academic language skills in order to be successful writers in the future as they grow to handle more difficult content. Finally, it allows ELL students the chance to understand how sentences are built so they can compare and contrast the information with how their home language is ordered and understand the concepts of English sentence structure so they can have a greater chance for success. Here's a good example of how to do this with a younger class. Doing a sentence study is best when it includes content the class is already learning. For this example, I'll use a sentence from Heartwood Hotel by Callie George, which is a great read aloud for grade 2 students. This sentence is from page 20. Gillies pushed open a swinging door to reveal a room smaller than either the lobby or the ballroom, but still bigger than any of Mona's old homes. So first of all, this sentence has 3 main clauses in it, 1 independent clause and 2 dependent clauses. This could be a good opportunity to examine the difference between independent and dependent clauses. Second of all, there's also an opportunity with this sentence, to examine the conjunction but in this sentence. Discussing what it means and how to use it properly is helpful for building syntax awareness and skills within the class. Finally, opportunities such as separating the clauses and moving them around using but in different sentences and building similar clauses with the word but to attach them to make one bigger sentence. Those are good ways to build knowledge and skill with syntax in mind.
Tell me how writing and learning work together.
Oh, that is an important thing to talk about. Writing appropriate sentences needs to be addressed in every content area as the content is being taught. And it's actually more effective for students if the sentence is something that they're already learning or something that is being addressed currently in the class. And students need to be able to be academically competent, and they need to learn how to write in different styles. So for example, scientific writing is writing that is factual and detailed. It conveys information and it doesn't convey thoughts or feelings. In comparison, reflective writing is a type of writing that contains feelings and thoughts. It's very different than the actual factual scientific writing. So the example of a scientific sentence that I have is, eagles are large birds of prey that live near water. The example for reflective writing, I felt sad and lonely when my friend ignored me. Now for the scientific sentences, they don't contain assumption or feeling words such as I like or they're cool. For the reflective writing, it shifts the focus to the writer of the sentence rather than the information itself. Now, this is very important for students to understand the different types of writing in different content areas. They need to learn the different purposes of these genres of writing, and they need to understand when to use them. An example of studying this and how to learn this is something called a language dive. The EL education discusses how during a language dive, the teacher and student slow down for 10 to 20 minutes to have a conversation about the meaning, purpose, and structure of a compelling sentence from a complex text or from a learning target, checklist, or rubric included in the curriculum. Following the engaging deconstruct, reconstruct, practice routine of the language dive, students play with the smallest chunks of the sentence, acting them out, rearranging them, or using them to talk about their own lives. As a result of paying close attention to how language works, all students begin to foster their overall language ability. According to EL Education, language dives are very good at building that grammatical knowledge that will take students successfully into academic language.
Do you have any other suggestions?
Well, I have two. Hockman and Wexler discuss using open and closed sentence frames to help students as they're learning. Using these frames can be especially helpful for ELL students who may need some extra support. And my second suggestion is quality over quantity. Instead of having students write a lot of imperfect sentences and fragments, have them independently learn to write fewer sentences of higher quality with the guidance of explicit instruction.
Well, Jeanette, thank you for joining me on the Working Together podcast.
Thank you for having me.
Please join us next week as we'll talk about building academic vocabulary. Please use this QR code to access the references Jeanette used today.